Welcome to the 905 podcast. I'm your girl, Savanna.
And I'm Charles.
Joining us now on the Raptors 905 podcast is the one and the only Courtney M. Charles, VP of Basketball and Franchise Operations. It's a pleasure to speak to you today.
It's a pleasure to be with you both. Thank you for having me.
AKA C's, for those who know him. Really cool to have you here. Listen, this is about getting to know you today. So, we're going to deep dive. And I always tell people the hard-hitting questions are coming from me. The deep ones, the in-depth, the ones that make you cry. Welcome. How are you? How's bubble life? How's Tampa treating you? How's the weather out there?
I definitely was expecting the harder questions to come from you as you and I have a relationship over the years. So I'm hoping that you definitely bring some more out of me for the viewers here. And it's a blessing here to be in the bubble. I was just actually in the team room, and one of the workers just, he really just thanked us for being here and being, polite and cordial. And it's basketball does so much for everyone, and it's amazing an experience. So for us to be here in the bubble and to not be able to have, a shave and a haircut, you would think would be one thing, but to be able to do what we love has been really good, and it's been great basketball. So really excited, really full.
They don't have a barbershop over there?
So we just got one. And, hopefully the G League doesn't get upset that I'm sharing some of these details, but it's obviously players first. So if there's 7 days in a week, I think it's 6 days for the players. Or actually, we'll say there's 1 day off. I think the barbers get 1 day off. So it's like, 5 days for the players and then 1 day for staff. So the bookings are pretty full, and it's got to work with your schedule. But we finally got a barber on campus here, living the quarantine life with us. So we're living it up.
Very nice. Very nice. What's the first haircut you're going to get?
So I've been, during the pandemic, I've tried to have fun knowing that you're not able to get haircuts as often. So I've been trying to let it grow out, and then I tell the barber to do what he wants. And then if it comes out good or bad, I just, hey, I don't know when I'll be back. So it'll probably grow back anyway. So I've been trying to have more fun during this pandemic with haircuts.
Nice. You should just get 905, just like shaved right into your hair. Or it gives you maybe a far back lineup back here.
Don't say that. Don't say that too loud. My kids already think my hairline's receding, but I think that's just a young people against old people conversation.
Fair.
I'm feeling you as I'm slowly getting bald in the back. I'll call it thin, not bald, but thin. You talk basketball, but your sort of sport history moves well past basketball. You're a track star. Take us back to your early days at Lewis University. So talk us through that. Where did Courtney Charles begin?
Not just the track star, might I add, All-American. So let's hear it. Let's hear it. You're holding back.
I was going to let him say that. Go ahead.
Oh, no. He's not going to say it. He's too humble. We have to say that stuff.
I think like anything in life, you go through life setting the bar high and trying to meet expectations that you don't even know what they are at some point. So I think, we talk about Lewis University, but it goes before that. I think it's just really being a young man growing up in Canada and wanting to dream big. I've always had this vision of seeing past Canada and what Canada might be and what it might have presented at the time. And not to date myself, but at the time when I was growing up, sports was not as popular. And to be honest, the only sport was really like lacrosse, curling, and hockey that was really talked about. And then, this young man named Michael Jordan kind of came on the scene and kind of made basketball fans of everyone, but then also allowed people to dream big, because he wasn't expected to be the best, and he wasn't expected to get through some of the trials and tribulations that he got through. So I look back now and I say, okay, who were my, mentors or idols that I looked up to? And they were always my parents, but I can honestly say Ben Johnson running for Canada set the bar at a level of what he did. And then the embarrassment of, the steroid scandal allowed me to realize like there's more to this thing in sports. And then obviously the Michael Jordan piece was like the next level of it, which really made me say, okay, who am I? What am I going to be? And I had a lot of people in my corner telling me that I was a star. So at some point I said, okay, I love basketball first. There was no question about it. But if I can run with something that everyone is telling me I'm good at, let's see how far we can get with it. And that's where the opportunity of going to a junior college in Arizona for 1 year and then going to Lewis University to be a track athlete really started becoming the dream for me, because now I'm leaving Canada. So now I'm thinking I've already set the bar higher than my parents ever thought. My peers were all shocked and surprised that I was able to accomplish something of this sort. And then that's kind of really started for me. And then once I got to the US, the competition and the coaches, they set the bar to another level. You know, they said, hey man, this is not Canada anymore. We've got expectations, we've got wants, and they gave me even more to dream big about and to set goals.
I love how you're like, I don't know if this is intentional, but you had a pun in there to run with everyone's expectations of yourself. Talk us through, like, what events did you do?
Yeah, the run with expectations is a great pun, because I ran anything from the 100 to 400. Did not like the 400 at all. That is an example of doing something because you're inexperienced and you don't know you have the power. So my coach took advantage of me. He knows that. We talk about it till today. I wanted to keep my scholarship, so he told me I had to run the 4.
That doesn't sound healthy, man.
Man, but it was funny because as a Canadian, and I share this with people because as a Canadian, I want to do anything to just keep what I've earned and to maybe even surpass it. And, you know, I ran the 100, 200, 400. My favorite race was a 200. I could never get out of the blocks in the 100. I was overthinking things, and that's why I understand how important mental health is. I could not trust to just listen to the gun. I wanted to go off reaction. I wanted to outsmart the gun. Like I wanted to go as he clicked it instead of, you know, when he actually shoots it. And those are the things you can't do. You know, that's your mind telling you to try to control something you don't control. What you can control is reacting to the gun. But then the other reason I share that with you is when I set my first record at Lewis University at the conference, it was the first wake-up call that I'm a Canadian. I'm here in a scenario that I love and appreciate. But if I'm the best in the conference, that means there's 11 other schools I could have went to. And that's when I was able to look at my coach and say, I don't feel like running this 400 later today. And he said, okay, I guess not, you know. So I've grown so much. Yeah, I've grown so much in these experiences that you get to see how things work when it comes to business, when it comes to sports, when it comes to, you know, expectations. My coach is the type of coach that would have had you do the steeplechase if he knew you just coming third got us points to win the conference. And he would motivate you and amp you up, and you would be out there thinking you're doing it for the team, which you were. But at some point, it would have been easier if he just told us that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Geez, I know we could dive into the NCAA and sport morals and ethics and the crazy stuff that happens. I mean, off camera, before I told you that, like, my little sister just recently got a scholarship to Boston University for track and field, and she does all the jumps, but I will not be surprised if they ask her to do hurdles as well, because that's something there. But, you then went to Marshall for your master's. What was that like? Take us through your next chapter of that journey.
So the Marshall experience was one where I was recruited by the sprint coach there. Her name was Frances Seeley. She was actually Canadian. So it worked in our favor of her wanting maybe just another Canadian at the program. But obviously I had run well, and I had accomplishments of sorts that qualified me for the job. So for me, that was really just to be able to see the level coaching at the NCAA at a D1 school. I had been at a junior college, I had been at a Division II, and now I have a chance of being at a Division I, where I get to now coach and I get to try to bring out what people were bringing out of me to run. I get to now try to motivate and to try to bring it out of these young ladies that were running with our team. And it was a great experience because a lot of the things that we talk about in the sports of business is it's not easy to be the on the other side, you know, being the athlete and then being the coach. It seems like it's just a shift of roles, but you know, in the beginning, I was like, I would rather just run today, because for me to motivate you to run, I'm not sure that's why I'm truly here. You know, I'm here to get you better, you know, but if I've got to motivate you to run, I mean, that was hard enough for me, you know.
Is that even part of your job though? Like when I hear you got to motivate an athlete, and shouldn't they have their own motivation, or is it just kind of like, oh, they're having a tough day, you know, pick yourself back up type of thing?
So Savanna, I can tell you, being in my role now, motivation is one of the key things that drives people. You know, it's something where we all have passions and we all have things that we want to do, but the motivation of getting people to be their best every day. I was talking with a few GMs last night here in the bubble, and it's great to have a skill, but you got to be able to use that skill consistently. You know, it's not just about having one good game. It's not about having one good race. It's not about having one good test in a classroom. It's about consistency. How can you get a consistent grade of high success, right? You know, it's not getting, you know, Fred VanVleet 54 points in one game. It's not, you just don't want to do that one time. It's how do you get an average of points that is consistent to winning and to getting better each day that you play. So it's something that I can tell you in this position with staff, with players, your motivation is an experiencing thing. I've had one player call me back because I've been in this long enough now that they've started out as a rookie and they're now in retirement, which is crazy to say because I remember when I first started this. But a player called me the other day and he said, you know, Courtney, when I used to ask you how you are every day and you say fantastic, I used to think it was just a cliche. I thought it was just something you wanted to say, but I can tell you 13 years later, you still say it. And I can honestly look back and say that drove me to get through the day sometimes. And I really believe that the motivation of encouraging people to do what they love, but to do it at the best level possible and to do it every day is not easy.
He made you feel old there when he's a retired athlete now?
You know, everybody's having kids now that didn't have kids and calling me for advice. You know, my kids are obviously gotten older. It's something, you know, I was in the bubble here and I showed Amir Johnson a picture of my son now, and Amir knew him when he was born. So, you know, it's an amazing thing that this sport has done for me. It's an amazing experience, an amazing ride. But like we said before, we've got some more expectations. We got a G League championship that we want to achieve. And unfortunately, I may have to take Amir out in the process of trying to win it. But we're here to have fun, and it's been really cool.
Well, speaking of consistency and growth and all of those things, I remember, you know, when I was coaching at Brock, I would come, you know, back and forth, and I would always check in with Courtney. I could say he's one of my mentors in the sporting industry, and he would take me up to his office, and you know, I'd unload, and he would give me his wisdom, and we would share. That's part of who you are. That's been part of your consistency, success, and growth. Take us back to your first day. You know, you've been, and I'll say this: you're one of the few people in that organization that has been there. You probably got to be one of the longest standing, you know, sort of from a basketball operations standpoint, right? Obviously, Jama's been there a long time, and yourself. Take us back to your first day. What was that like, and sort of your rise to where you are today?
Yeah, I still have those feelings of nervousness, and again, it's nervousness to want to be successful, right? So I remember the interview process. I remember doing everything to prove that I could be a great intern with a master's it's something that I try to teach young people and try to challenge even adults. You know, we have to strive for what it is we want. So I remember preparing my resume, and I should be, you know, applying for a career job. I should be applying for something that's should be putting some money in my pockets. I've been in school for now 7.5 years. I need to make some money. And here I am applying for an internship that might pay me a couple dollars a week to maybe use the bus. And I remember that feeling of, this will be such a win if I can get this, right? And thank goodness they said, hey, you know, you're an older intern than normal, because most of them are just doing their bachelor's degree. They haven't accomplished 2 years of post grad. And I said, whatever it takes, you know, I'm here to not only learn, but I'm here to do whatever the team needs. And I remember, you know, starting my first day and just sitting at the desk and just saying, what do I do? Like, what do you all need? Like, I wish the phone rang and I could say Courtney Charles, intern. So all of these are feelings that I remember, you know, just wanted to be part of this great organization, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, as new as they were to the basketball world. At that point, you know, you think 10 years, 11 years is a long time, but that's fairly new in a professional sport when you're trying to start from an expansion standpoint. You know, no draft picks in the beginning, and you know, there's a lot of hurdles that would hold you back. So for me, it was really cool, really grateful. And as I always tell everybody, unfortunately, my boss gets fired 30 days in. So a lot of my spirit, and you talk about motivation, was a little bit confused, because it's like, who's going to lead us, but who's also going to look out for me still, knowing that I'm this old intern who, the guy who kind of consented to hire me, has now been told his actions have not been, you know, appreciated anymore, and I might be seen as one of them. So there was a lot of emotion, but like I said, motivated to do well, and thank goodness I'm still here, and I'm with a great group with Masai and his team, and we continue to try to win.
Man, that takes so much. I'm trying to find the word, like humbleness, putting your pride to the side. To, like, you're right. You said it. Like, you could have had a career job, but instead you went for an internship. I think a lot of people get caught up on titles and they don't necessarily see the future path that you've blazed for yourself. And I'm almost very curious, you know, because you have gone up the NCAA division ranks from junior to D2 to D1, and then now here you are interning. You know, how did you do that? How were you able to put your pride aside and see the opportunity?
I wanted to be great. I wanted to be good at what I do. I wanted to not skip steps. I wanted to prove myself. You know, I talked to my mom a lot, and I remember, you know, I haven't shared this story publicly a lot, but my mom brought it up the other day, and I think it's time for me to kind of share with people even more of the humbleness that it takes. When I got my scholarship, Central Arizona College, the JUCO that we mentioned, I really was at an age that I wanted to do things for myself. I didn't want to be something that I had to depend on others. And it wasn't a negative to my parents at all. I just wanted to show them that I'm trying, and I'm going to try to do this to show you how I'm, you know, working. So I get a scholarship. First day of school is coming up, and, you know, the school says, unfortunately, we can't pay for your travel to school. We're paying for your school. We're paying for your books, but your travel is something you have to figure out. And I figured it out on my own. I decided I would travel from Toronto to Arizona by bus. And at the time, I didn't think it was crazy. I mean, it sounds crazy back then because we didn't have Uber and stuff. So being on a bus for that period of time and not having anybody you know and traveling across the world is pretty crazy. But I remember going to my mom and saying, I got to leave for school today, but I won't arrive. You know, I'll leave on a Monday, won't arrive till Thursday. And I remember my mom saying, no, my son, you think of social justice stuff, a Black man just traveling on his own, with like real documentation, at that time, I didn't even know if I would get through the border easy. Like, these are not things that I could truly tell you I even had an understanding of. Mm-hmm. But I was willing to take the risk because I wanted to show and prove that I could do it. And I remember my mom saying, no, we'll get you a flight. We'll book something, put you on a plane and you'll get there the same day. And I said, no, Mom, I've decided to do this and this is what I want. And just to give you a quick summary of the story, when you ride a bus for about 36 hours, you don't sleep as much as you think you would. Because I'm a very curious person. I wanted to know everybody that was coming on and off the bus. And then you also want to see where you are. And it's amazing because we end up stopping in Chicago. And we end up stopping at a bus stop that when I end up going to Lewis University, I end up going out for dinner one day and I end up eating at a restaurant near this bus stop that I had stopped at on my way to Arizona. And I said, who ever thought I would see this bus stop again and actually be in the city of it going to school? And I said, these are the trials that you will never experience unless you try. And that was my risk. That was my try. Not sure I would do it again today. But those are the ways of why I've been the way I've been. And again, I tell people, you don't always know the stories and the things of how people got to where they are. And I'm not always one to share them and to, preach about them. But I'm at a point now that a lot of young people need to realize you can be qualified, you can be skilled, but you got to put in the work and you got to be humble.
I love that story. Oh man. It actually reminds me because I took a bus to Chicago actually to go see my twin sister. And funny enough, so back when she was at Alabama, she took a bus up to Toronto even. And let me tell you, the bus has ways of one, humbling you, and two, some crazy stories always comes out of a bus trip. So good for you. And good for you for doing it on your own, even though your mom was like, we got it. We can take care of it. And you say like, no. I feel like that almost is like a micro example of how your life and your work ethic has reflected throughout your career,
Yeah, I know sometimes our team thinks I'm a little bit cheap as a vice president of not wanting to spend money because I always find this way of being a little more efficient. And I think those are the experiences that I have, that there's always a way that you can maybe cut some costs or you can maybe do something to not spend as much or to spend as much time or whatever, vice versa. But it's something that I think is very important. And I think, the pandemic, as much as this is an unfortunate time and I hope everybody's staying safe and healthy, but hopefully it's taught us to be a little bit more conservative on how we live and to figure out what it is that truly drives you to enjoy life. Because I think sometimes we might not be truly doing things that are truly beneficial for ourselves and for others.
I want to touch on something you mentioned. I want to touch on a million things that you mentioned, but one of them just now was about, showing the importance of speaking up and sharing your experiences so that others, especially young people, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I would suggest even, young Black men in particular, who might look up to you, young people in general, but in particular, young Black men, how important it would be for them to hear you and not only see you as a representation, we'll talk about that in a second, but how have you sort of gone through this journey of realizing, hey, I can't keep this all in the vault. It's not like my money, I take it all with me. I need to be sharing some of my experiences like you did with me when I was at, Brock and still today. Like that has a significant impact on me and sort of teaching me the inner workings of the industry and understanding how things go. I would never get that otherwise. I now know, through these experiences, how hard you work and how it is to do that because of where you've been able to get to. Without knowing that and only seeing it, you don't know if you get the same understanding. And so how important is it for you to be sharing, now, just sort of opening the vault. It's kind of like Masai, and we'll touch on this in a little bit, opening up and speaking about his experiences. Talk about that for you from your standpoint.
For me, it became collaboration. I really started realizing that as much as I was dreaming, I didn't truly know any of the people that I was dreaming about. When I talk about Ben Johnson, when I talk about Michael Jordan, I didn't know them personally. I didn't have access to them. So when I started looking at who I might have access to, there weren't many people of color. There weren't many people that looked or sounded like me. And at some point, I didn't know if that was right or wrong. And as I grew and as I started to question things more, and like I told you, I would question my coach on why I had to do certain things that he was asking me to. It wasn't a form of disrespect. It was more of the curious mind of, coach, if we work together, we'll get more out of what we're doing. And I started doing that with my friends. Instead of us just saying we're friends and we're cool, let's collaborate a little more on why we do what we do. Why do you do what you do? Why do I do what I do? Your parents are from where? My parents are from Jamaica, Antigua. Let's start collaborating a little more on what are some of these differences. And that was the part of where my interest really started looking at sport the same way, because it was really interesting. The thing that drove me was competition. It was really cool when someone said I couldn't do something. That was the thing that really started getting me to say, hold on now, I got to do better. Like if you said I can't get an A on a math test, I'm gonna prove I can get an A on a math test. But there's also a time when people say, hey, we don't get A's, or I'm not worried about getting an A. And that's an easy thing to fall into. But if you start collaborating and saying, wait, hold on, you got an A, you got an A, so that I get an A, I'm gonna start competing. So I started competing in everything. You start competing on how you dress, how you talk, how you walk, how someone pronounces your name. Everything becomes a competition. And I took it, and I remember some people being mad at me because I was being too competitive. I look back now and I have teammates who I didn't want to run sometimes. I'll be honest with you guys, like everybody, I wanted a day off. And I remember someone would beat me in practice and they would be so excited. And I'd be like, it's practice. And I started realizing they are beating somebody that they know is faster than them. So that gives them confidence. So I started realizing I can't lose in practice. So now I'm competing in practice. And what was amazing was, because I started competing in practice, we started competing against each other at such a high level that when we went to a track meet, we already know I'm going to win. And that's not me being confident. I'm just saying, statistically, I'm faster than them. I've ran faster than them. So I'm supposed to run faster than them. But the point is, if I ran a personal best, that usually meant that they would run a personal best because they were trying to run with me. And all of a sudden, what I was doing was helping others. And I started realizing that that's what I need to do, which is I need to continue to set the bar. As much as I can't see somebody above me setting it, I need to set it because there's some people behind me that are willing to follow and that are willing to come with me if we can both try to reach it. And that's when I started saying, I need to stop holding this information. I need to start telling him he needs to sleep better. He needs to eat better, and it will be better for him because he will make me better because he'll be running behind me trying to pass me. And that will make our team better. And at that point, let's just try to make the world better.
He's gonna try to pass me, but he ain't passing me. And don't worry about it. Like the beautiful thing about track is that it's actually really not subjective. There's literally numbers to show how you're doing. And so if you're the fastest and the numbers show it, then numbers don't lie.
Nope.
Go into now. So you have this mentality of competing, which by the way, reminds me so much of Michael Jordan and what he did with his teammates, getting up super early, crack of dawn. And all of a sudden they started following him because be like Mike, really, at the end of the day. And that ended up pushing them for the greatness that they have achieved. And of course, years later, The Last Dance. Courtney, you said, going back a little bit to your story, you landed at the Toronto Raptors franchise as an intern. 1 month in, your boss gets let go, or something happens. He's no longer with the organization, and a new boss comes in. What happened there? Like, what happened after that point?
Well, the new boss was Mr. Embry. And I've shared this a few times, which is, the real inspirational part to what Charles's question was just on. As an intern, I now have this Black leader who's in charge. And at that point, I can be honest with you all, I hadn't done my research on Mr. Embry yet, because again, he was more of a consultant who was not necessarily there day to day and not, part of what we were doing visibly. And when Rob got let go, here comes in this seasoned wise man who now is saying, be calm. I've been here before. This is what we need to do. And I'm saying, hold on, you've been here before. And you do your research and you start looking him up and you start reading and you start realizing he's, the first GM and he's done this trade and and it's interesting because when I first met Mr. Embry and he found out I went to Marshall, he asked me, who was the player that played at Marshall? And automatically I started thinking of all these football players and I think of Jason Williams, but Hal Greer was the player he wanted me to think about because that was from his time. And I already knew from then that he had this experience, but I didn't realize how much experience. And then I didn't realize he's the first. Mm-hmm. And now, like we talked about, that bar is now set. Mm-hmm. How do I learn from him? And he's willing to share. He's willing to give. He's willing to help. He was so instrumental in making sure Sam Mitchell could be a good coach. He's very instrumental in making sure Sam became coach of the year. And I was able to see these things grow and build and develop. So for me, the experience was unbelievable. As I said before, I was nervous. We can use the word scared. I didn't know what was going to happen next. But Mr. Embry put a nice, calming philosophy and theory together that made me feel that, not that this was meant to be, because no one wants to see someone get fired or lose their job. But Mr. Embry put us in a place that we are going to do our due diligence. We're going to bring in the right people. And the franchise was very blessed to have him during that transitional time. And he's been with us ever since. So I have to say, Messiah is obviously our brains of the action that got us a championship. But Mr. Embry is someone who has guided our organization, guided us all to a place that we can honestly say we are champions.
I'm going to jump in right here because my brain's running a mile a minute right now. This is what we talk about when we talk about the trickle effect, the trickle down effect. Okay, you talk about Wayne Embry, and whether it's directly or indirectly, either way, it's opening a door for Masai Ujiri, which is now opening a door for yourself to be in the position that you are in, which is now opening a door for Patrick Mutombo to be in his position, inspiring and leading the team. And we talk about servant leadership with him. That was like one of his mantras that he's really put forward in this organization. And it's just the full picture is coming to me now. I'm just amazed. But would like to expand on like that trickle down effect. What did exactly like Embry teach you as well? Because now you're in this decision-making position as well.
I've got to say two things here real quickly, and it's going to be really a compliment to you both. Because Charles talked on it earlier about coming into my office, but Charles is a mentor to me. Charles had experiences that I wanted to know about. I've always had a curious mind of like criminology and community and police. And he had that experience. So as much as he was coming into my office to ask me questions, to pick my brain, I wanted to pick his and ask him questions. And Savanna, the passion you just shared on just how much you're hearing that has gone through your mind and that your family is experiencing from a track world and from your basketball experience and from you now doing what you love. This is the part that is so beautiful about this game and beautiful about life, which is that we are able to realize that us coming together is only going to give more opportunity to everybody. And this is the way you're going to create diversity and inclusion, right? I remember talking to Kurt about doing a podcast to be able to go into these stories a little bit deeper and to share to show our athletes and to show our staff. And I understand I'm doing mine now, but it's not about me. It was about Savanna being able to get some more reps on what it is that she does in her career, and for her to show her passion about what she does, and for Charles to not only talk about being an ex-police officer and being a university coach and being a pro coach and then being a professor and then whatever else he might have down the road, but it's to show the world that this game has united us in many different to come together to celebrate the game, but then to also share what life is about, which is sharing our different stories, our different paths. So again, I thank you both for taking the time and being with us, and to believing in the 905 as being the development piece to start doing this a little bit more. Like I said, the Michael Jordans, the Raptors, they're sometimes a little too far away for people to truly touch and to feel and to get what it is that's happening. But let's use this 905 piece to really get people to realize Nick Stauskas is a player who has NBA dreams, but he's just another Canadian who just wanted to play the game of basketball. And he now has multiple levels of basketball to play it on. And same with Charles, he gets to coach at multiple levels now. If he wants CEBL, Brock, 905, that's the joy. Savanna, you're the same way, multiple levels to do what you love. And let's just keep growing it so we continue to have more, and that our families and kids and next generations have these same platforms. So thank you.
Thank you, because I think, you know, and it was kind of to my next question, is you're helping to change the narrative of what, you know, sports professionals look like, but in particular front office professionals, what they look like. We know the numbers, I think it's less than 5%, you know, throughout the NBA of GMs are people of color, you know, even less as you go higher up the ladder. How important is it for you to change the narrative? Part one. And part B, I've said this a million times. One of the most powerful things that I think Masai did or is doing is not speaking out and telling his story, but is really pushing people to share theirs. Because it's a little bit, I want to say this, it's going to sound bad, but it's a little easier. I'm going to use it for lack of a better term. For Masai, not any easier necessarily, but he's in a position, you know, that people might be a little more comfortable. You think, well, if I was there, I would say X. And the people who may not be in that position, who might have a little more concern of losing their job or, financial security, other comparatives, may not feel as empowered. So back to the question, how important is it for you to change the narrative from your seat? Not that you're not there, but because you are, but maybe closer to the ground, if you will. How important is it for you to change that narrative and to encourage others to speak out while you're doing the same thing?
Messiah said that unfortunately his experience has allowed him to realize that he needs to redirect and be intentional with his energy to fight a cause that he may have not overlooked or undervalued, but needed to make sure that there is a consistency and an intentional process to make sure that we continue to communicate how important it is to treat people as humans. And this game of basketball, which is played by majority of people of color, minorities, as you mentioned, the number is unbelievable on who plays the game. It should be coached, front office ran, and owned by some of these same people. But unfortunately, as we've discussed here plenty, if we have not motivated people, if we have not shared experiences with people, there is no reason for them to dream big, because they don't need to think it's part of their next step if they have other things that they want to accomplish. And I think that's the challenge of when we motivate to challenge people to dream big and to set goals. You're trying to find a way to make them realize that, one, you are human and you belong and you deserve, and anything you want to put your mind to, you have the right to try to accomplish. Now, you may fail, there may be risk, but fall forward, don't fall back. Fall forward and try to find a way to pick yourself up, recover, and then figure out what's next for you. And I think for myself in this position, I can honestly tell you that it's tough not looking up above me and not seeing multiple levels of management outside of Masai in multiple leagues. We're not talking just basketball, we're talking NFL. We're talking other sports that have a majority of minority people of color that do not have representation in the front office, in ownership, in position that people make decisions. And it's something that, again, pushes me to get to another level, to then come back. And as I shared with you earlier, to encourage people to believe and to realize they have the opportunity. So we have a lot of work to do, but that shouldn't be the reason to not press on. We've got to do the job just as well. I think that's the part that sometimes people don't realize. We don't want the position to say we have the position. We want the position to win, as Masai has proven. He's a NBA champion as a Black leader. And at some point, that is what we need to continue to share with others, that we have been able to do what we haven't been given. It has not been easy, but it is doable, and the accomplishment is really gratifying once you get there and you do it.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing all of this, by the way, Courtney. Like this is already like, I'm already gonna leave this podcast feeling so satisfied. Like I got a lot of information, but more than that, inspiration as well, motivation to keep going. Because people don't realize how I saw a tweet yesterday, and it really spoke to me. Like somebody was just tweeting, I'm tired. I got to protect my peace. And people don't understand how hard it is to protect your peace sometimes in an industry that is white dominated. And so from your standpoint now, okay, you had Wayne Embry, legend, trailblazer, now teaching you the ropes. What was the evolution after that? What happened after that? You had multiple positions in this organization. Take us through, honestly, every step of the way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's been something where I sometimes feel like I'm speaking too much and I'm maybe saying too much.
We got a podcast, man. This is a whole podcast. You're supposed to talk.
Yes, it is something that I'm starting to realize that there is more there to share, and it's my job to find different ways of sharing it and to make sure that I get different perspectives to make sure that I'm reaching everyone. Because like I said, this is not just for Black people. This is for everybody. This is for my colleagues who didn't necessarily look at race as an issue before, and they don't realize that some of the things that we go through are because of race, and it's as simple as that. My parents are not from Canada. They had to migrate there, which means they didn't have anything. They didn't inherit a house. They didn't have a wealth of money that was passed on. So I share that because when I go through an internship, becoming a coordinator, becoming a manager, becoming a director, and now becoming a vice president, all of those levels, I know I'm supposed to probably get a couple more dollars, but how much? I don't know. No one is telling me. No one above me has really done it, right? So as I told you, I might have been getting some intern dollars that covered the bus, maybe. Now I'm a coordinator. Is it supposed to cover the bus and maybe lunch? Like, I don't know. And I think, to your point, Savanna, these are the things that we sometimes don't talk about because we're embarrassed, right? If I say I work at the Raptors and someone says, well, you must make a lot of money. That's a successful company. You guys have this. You're connected to the NBA. There's all these things that say you're successful. But as a coordinator, I can honestly tell you, I was making more than I was making as an intern, but how much more was it supposed to be? And as I've moved up this ladder, these are the challenges that I have to put on our ownership group. That are these positions being paid at the equal amount as other counterparts would, as other colleagues would, right? And those are the type of things that make the business a little bit more interesting. And again, like I said, I try to be very efficient. I try to make sure that we're not overspending, but at some point I got to make sure I'm paying my staff fairly.
Mm-hmm.
I got to make sure they're being treated fairly. And I want to make sure we're doing this for all staff. It's not just Black staff. It's not just minority staff. This is for everybody. So for me, it was a great experience to be able to go through all those levels, because I can now look back and I can say, okay, you know what? I know what it's like to be an intern, and I may have to take some of my personal money and go buy that intern lunch, and I may have to tell a coordinator, hey, this player wore the same size shoes as you and he said he doesn't want them anymore. This might be for you because I know how much you're making. There's different things that I've been able to experience that I can hopefully try to improve, but I can also relate to, and I can also share with these people that if they continue to work, they can, eventually get to a better place. Or if you need money, then maybe this is not the position for you. You might have to go work as a police officer or as an AD or as a professor, So these are the different things where it's a great experience. I enjoyed every part of it. I have no regrets. But my job is to make sure that we try to do better, make sure we're trying to make it fair and have some consistency among humans.
You just got so real. Like, I mean, we've been real this whole time, but like now this is a whole different level that you just unleashed here with the uncomfortable conversation of pay gaps. Let's face it. And I think a part of it comes from, and I'm going to throw this word out there, maybe imposter syndrome within the Black community. Like, we're happy to be in the door sometimes. We'll take whatever we can. And that mentality has to change, because that's not necessarily fair, because other people might know what that position is worth. So it's very great to hear your perspective on that.
No, my pleasure. It's, I've been able to speak to some of my colleagues who are white, and they can share honestly, they can quit a job sometimes because they don't have fear of not having money to pay for rent, or having a support system to pay for rent, or to go to school for 10 years and to be able to pay for it. These are not necessarily things for all humans, again, not a race thing, just humans in general. Not everybody can do that. And I think it's our job to make sure that we are being considerate when we are, posting a job, that it posted everywhere and not just to the people that have access to it because of what they're able to do, because of where they go to school and what they're able to pay to see. It's not all jobs need to be a membership club. Some jobs need to be a visual posting that anybody can see, not only to apply, but to tell somebody else. I need to be able to see it because I might know somebody and I can tell them in case they haven't seen it. So for me, that's, the part where we just need to be a little more transparent.
I was just about to ask you how you begin to deconstruct in an industry, some of those systems you're talking about, in an industry that is relationship based, but the transparency is part of the answer, right? It's being open and casting the widest net as far as, and that's not just for your industry, but all industries, as far as equitable hiring practices and so on, but ensuring that we're casting the widest net. So that's a really important piece, and you covered it before I could get it to you. I want to talk to you about the 905.
Yes.
Because you're moving on up, as they say. You got the tap, you got the nod, the coach called you in, you're in the game. One, what was that like? Because you had been on sort of the Raptor side for 14 plus years, and you got pretty well known for being, C's the one who's, player development extraordinaire in terms of, managing relationships with players and families. I mean, all the behind the scenes work that people have no clue, and maybe touch on what that job actually is, maybe before you get into moving into this role, where you're ready for the change.
Yeah, I think to the point that Savanna talked on earlier, I really am a humble, hardworking type person. And I started realizing early in my career with the Raptors that I might have to be a behind the scenes guy. I might have to be somebody that's not going to get a pat on the back and not going to be put in the forefront for what is being done. And I took pride in just making sure I'll do whatever it takes for us to win, right? And I used to have conversations with Masai when he was with us as a scout and before he became director of global scouting and assistant GM with the Raptors before moving on to Denver. And we used to always talk about just what more we could do with our players, what more could we do as a franchise. And that's some of the conversations that I look back to where he was just totally being innovative. He didn't want Canada to be an excuse anymore. He didn't want taxes to be an excuse anymore. He wanted us to start finding the things that are truly staples that we could stand on. And when he was able to come back as president and GM and allowed me to stay on as an employee, he then challenged me to now take this position of manager of player development, and let's get the best out of our players. Let's get them to be the best on the court. Let's get them to be the best off the court. Let's get them in a position where they start to love Canada, right? They start not only staying here more, but they start bringing their family here more. They start embracing the culture of Canada. And you've seen it. You know, we all can go back and we can say we didn't have our stadium full. Well, now we have outside full. You know what I mean? That's a culture that we've developed of our franchise. This is what people know of our franchise now. These are things that Masai wanted to work on. Our players have now participated in summer events. It means they're in Toronto. That never used to happen. They used to be gone. We have people having their children in Canada. This is an unbelievable thing. We've got Canadian babies of our employees. So these are things that we've now embraced. We fully have educated people on so they understand what Canada is, what we're trying to improve, as we still have some things that we would like to be better. But the mindset was, you're coming here and everything you do is about being better than you were yesterday. Dream big, attach goals to those dreams. And hats off to Masai for having these visions and to building a culture of expectation and to building a diverse group of not only people of color, but of women in multiple positions. We're not talking about just having a woman in sport. We're talking about having women in operations, in media, coaching staff, you know, on the nutrition, on the medical side. So at some point, we've put men, women, people of color in every avenue. The expectation is there to be great. It's not just to be there, but we're doing it in a way that we can continue to build and continue to grow. And I think that's a key part to our success.
So how much of that do you bring to the 905? And now you have an opportunity with all of that mentorship to put your own staple, your own handprint on the 905. What are you bringing?
Well, let's take our hat off to John Wiggins first as a person of color in the position before me, which you can say we both looked up to each other. As I mentioned, you know, Charles and you and I have done the same thing. John has set the bar at a very high level, as we know, franchise of the year for 2019, 2020. And he was doing things the same way that Masai has expected him to. And now my job is to do the same. And it's a collaboration, as I said earlier. We've been able to show that we are going to move people into positions that they are either doing already, just didn't have the title, or they will move on to whatever is next as the time is appropriate, as we've seen with our assistant coaches, as we've seen with other staff that have gone through 905, as we've seen with call-ups. We've had 905 staff go to the NBA. We've had NBA staff go to 905. So for me, I don't look at it as replacing or trying to duplicate. I see it as a family that has built pillars that we all believe, and we are then set to expectations that we have to try to meet. And you know, Teresa called me yesterday and said, "Hey, what do you need? How can I help?" And this is an example where she's not necessarily maybe running 905, but she runs 905. Bobby runs 905. Dan Tolzman runs 905. We all have been running 905, either from close or from afar, because it's part of our culture. It's part of our development. The staff are just as important as the players. And this is something that we continue to do.
I love how like everybody's involved. It's all hands on deck with 905. It's not just that's them, they're cute, and this is us. Like I love how it's not. This is a whole family collaborating together. You know, I'm hoping that you stay in your position for a while or continue to move up some way, somehow, wherever that takes you. But at the end of the day, what legacy are you trying to leave behind on the 905?
Great question. Legacy of learning and developing, challenging, as we said, motivating, really trying to, become something for Canada. We always talk about the Raptors being the only Canadian team. Well, we're the only G League team. And at some point, we've seen the effects of how basketball has grown in this country. We have the highest number of players in the NBA. We have multiple leagues that are now professional and starting up. Let's continue to set the bar to continue to grow this game. But let's also make sure we're doing our off-court duty of helping people understand the importance of physical fitness. That's one reason why we love the sport. Mental wellness, sleeping, eating right, just continuing to motivate people. We did a partnership with the YMCA the other day, and it's to motivate people to continue to be motivated and to understand their health and to keep their mind in a good place. So we as a organization need to continue to entertain. Let's be honest, we're in that business as well. But let's continue to do it while also helping humans, changing the world, impacting the world, to make this a better place. And if I can do a little bit, as I try to do with both of you here, with Title League and this collaboration that we've got, then I feel like we're spreading the word, we're building, we're trying to get to bigger and better places, but we're helping people along the way. Then I'm pretty satisfied, and hopefully people can look back and say we're appreciative of what he attempted and got done.
Talk to us about your favorite moments in the organization, and I'm going to guess the championship is one of them with the 905. But talk us through that, but then other favorite moments as well.
So obviously the 905 championship, the NBA championship, these are things when I look back as an intern, as I said, if I ever said that I could be part of these and contribute in some way, those are the things you never dream and know the outcomes of. Being able to start the 905 was really a huge accomplishment for us. And I'm glad to say I was part of that. And that's how John was able to get on, and Henry Chow, who was the owner of the Mississauga Power at the time. Thank goodness for his partnership and collaboration. So those are a few of the key high points. I think every promotion that you get is always a high point because someone acknowledges your work ethic. So those are always key to me. Being able to keep my job through many coach changes and GM and president changes are always celebrating moments for me. So there's many, being there for players through times that are not always positive, I think has been really rewarding for me to know that I'm there to support them and they honestly can call on me to help be a resource for them. Was really something that I could never again. The Michael Jordan was too far away from me. The Ben Johnsons were too far away from me. But I've been able to grow some relationship with players that are almost as famous as those guys, not on the level of famous, but celebrity status, as some people would say. But to know that I was able to treat them as humans and help them as humans helps me to realize that I can do it not only for a Michael Jordan, but I can also do it for my neighbor, and I can also do it for the kids in the community. So these are winning moments that realize that you can truly do more than even what you think you can do.
That about sums up you. And I'm saying this having known you, but for those that don't, all of those things are about you giving, really, right? Like you are found yourself, and hats off to your parents who have done a great job with you.